Although we have acknowledged, done the land acknowledgement at the beginning of today's service, I just want to acknowledge again that before Canada was formed, Indigenous peoples lived in balance and interconnectedness with the land and the water from which the necessities of life are provided. So many of the staff who work at Ocean Legacy and those connected to Ocean Legacy work and live on the traditional unceded territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. And I would like to acknowledge with respect and gratitude that I am a grateful visitor and resident to the traditional territories of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Odawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe peoples. And having celebrated, having marked, honored the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, I spent the day at Lambton College. And what I am aware of as I have done my studies with Indigenous people is how holistic and respectful Indigenous peoples are in living in concert with the land. And I think they have a great deal to teach us. And so maybe I'll bring my mouse up that way, keep me closer to the microphone. There we go. So what I'm here to help you understand is what's happening with plastic in the ocean. What is the actual issue? And there are many steps, simple ones, that you can be taking that will help to solve that problem. And so that's what I want you to understand today. So to help you get a brief overview, this is a very short video, but it's going to introduce you to some of the factors that impact plastic in the ocean.
The world is facing a plastic pollution crisis. Plastic consumption and production have reached unsustainable levels, with plastic consumption quadrupling over the past 30 years. Primary plastics, such as nurdles, are available in abundance at a low cost for manufacturers of plastic products, and the amount of primary plastic available is expected to triple by 2060. Only a small fraction of new plastic products are produced from recycled content due to poor quality, lack of availability, and high costs. The production of primary plastic polymers relies heavily on fossil-based sources, contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. Without action, plastic consumption and plastic waste are also projected to nearly triple by 2060. Even though we can recycle some plastic waste, today we only recycle 9%. Our waste management and recycling systems cannot handle current levels of plastic waste, let alone future growth. The High Ambition Coalition to End Plastic Pollution is committed to developing an ambitious international, legally binding instrument to end plastic pollution by 2040. The Plastics Treaty should require countries to take effective measures to restrain the production of primary plastic polymers within a set time frame and to stimulate a market for secondary plastics. These could include administrative measures, bans, removal of subsidies, and regulations. Parties should agree on robust and comprehensive minimum reporting requirements for plastic polymer production and chemical additives used in the production. Let's end plastic pollution by 2040.
So when I left Ocean Legacy in June of 2024, at the end of June, there were only 65 countries who were part of this coalition. So just in 1 year, we've had another 10 countries join. So the world is committed to understanding what the crisis is and to learning what steps we can actually take to make a change in what's happening. So who Ocean Legacy is a Canadian nonprofit and social enterprise. It was started by founders Chloe Dubois and James Middleton. They were doing a great deal of travel and were aware of how much plastic they were seeing in the ocean. And they knew that something needed to be done. And so they took it upon themselves to co-found Ocean Legacy. And about Ocean Legacy, essentially, it's the first and only facility in all of North America that removes plastic waste from the ocean. They track it, they trace it, so they know where the source has actually come from, because the waste collects in 5 gyres in the ocean, which are 5 currents essentially that create points of collision, and the plastic gathers there. I'm sure you've heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's one of many. And so what Ocean Legacy does is they travel to all of the different places that you see there, all kinds of different shorelines. They work both on land, in the water, and they do, for example, overland flood management. So when BC had tremendous flooding in 2022, 2023, they were contracted by the federal government, because overland flooding creates a great deal of waste that just ends up washing into waterways that eventually lead to the ocean. So they deal with a number of different environments. You can see the amount of plastic we're talking about is not just a couple of bags. We have I'm no longer there, they have a dedicated ship that's their boat, and they bring it to on site. As you can see, they're pulling a fishing net out of that's embedded itself in the shoreline. And so they work in all those different environments to help recover that plastic, clean it, track it, trace it, and then remanufacture it at their plant just outside of Vancouver in Richmond, BC. The reason that they use EPIC is because it's the 4 pillars of the work that they do. So E for education and research, contributing to the body of research that is about microplastics and all kinds of things that relate to plastic in the ocean. P for policy and advocacy, both with citizens and corporations. We need the development of infrastructure, and that's the I. And it's nice to recover that plastic, but if we don't have somewhere to actually take it and do something with it, we don't have systems and governance that requires us to act in a certain way with the waste we create, then we're not meeting the problem where it's at. And then the final is C, and that's, of course, cleanup and restoration of the environment. So all of the work that EPIC Academy is what I'm going to tell you about, is one of your solutions, but the EPIC program are the 4 pillars of Ocean Legacy. So in terms of what Ocean Legacy has done, nearly 4 million pounds of plastic has been removed from the ocean. Ocean Legacy is but one organization that does this. They are a single Canadian organization. There are many that do this, so that helps you to understand the vast quantities that are in the ocean. 2 million pounds of that 4 have been diverted from landfill into remanufacture, and Ocean Legacy, just on their own, has created about 1,200 jobs as a result. So they operate in 4 countries: Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, and Canada. We're in discussions looking at an ocean waste facility in Washington, but current situation, that may not transpire. And the protection is for restoring ecologically sensitive lands and waters, and of course, training people in every community that Ocean Legacy goes to. Their work is to help train locals and leave behind a legacy of skill building so that they can help manage that community after the cleanup has been done. There's a legacy of education and skills that gets left behind from the work after the cleanup. So one way that Ocean Legacy helps to tackle this problem is they've created ocean plastic depots on each of Canada's coasts for the ocean. So the ones that each on the west coast is in Ucluelet, Cumberland, Port McNeill, Cathet or Powell River, and Seychelles. And then there are 2 rope and net depots in Halifax and Lunenburg, because these are the places where we have fishing, aquaculture, we have oysters that are being grown and farmed, we have all kinds of fishing industry, which is where a lot of the ghost gear shows up in the ocean, for example, things that are abandoned or lost at sea or discarded. And of course, they continue to fish. When there's no one there to actually staff that net and pull it out, then that net is catching fish and ends up really playing havoc with the ecosystem and creating a great deal of suffering for the wildlife that gets caught in it under the earth. So both public and industry are able to access those depots, by the way. It's not just industry. Anyone can bring their ocean plastic waste. They do beach cleanups and they can deliver it to those depots. And this is, I've got 2 slides here that just give you an idea of what this plastic gets made into. So if you've ever bought a product from Lush, which is the top left picture, those little black pots, that contains recycled plastic that's come from the ocean. Amonzi uses PET clear plastic bottles, like water bottles that we often see, and they make those into reusable shopping bags. Anyan is making buttons from oyster baskets that have reached the end of their lives, and they're beautiful buttons. As you can see, they're quite classy looking. All of the bottom are garden boxes and public benches, and then this is a furniture set. The 2-seater sofa actually contains 500 pounds of recycled plastic that's come out of the ocean. So that was what it will weigh when it's sitting on your deck. It's not going to blow away in the wind, I promise you. We're looking at a minimum 20-year life cycle on that, and it could be subject to a bit of UV degradation over time. But you can actually plane the top of that, and then it has a bag to collect any microplastics as you plane the surface, completely refreshes it. And if you decided you no longer wanted that product, you can return it to Ocean Legacy and they will recycle it completely. So these are some of the options, and then some of them also new and fun things that they have happening. There's a company that's making the gardening tools that you see on the far left panel. They've now started taking the buoys that come out of the ocean and they're cutting them and reshaping them into all sorts of hanging planters and growing towers as well. Once you're finished in the garden, you might need to compost, and they now have a 4-gallon green bin as well for your compost needs. And then when you need to wash up after all that gardening, they're making Coast Cleanse, which is soap dishes, so that holds a little bar of soap. And it's completely from that recycled plastic that's come out of the ocean. So just to give you some idea of what was once waste, what it can look like when it's actually transformed. Then there's bigger projects where they're actually starting to work with manufacturers to build boats that are essentially, they're ocean going and essentially indestructible because they're made from, as you know, plastic floats very well. So the boat on the left-hand side is essentially made out of laundry detergent containers. That's really what that is, HDPE number 2 plastic. So those vessels are incredibly strong, and that's using vast amounts of plastic. So you can really start to look at ways that we can be taking large quantities and repurposing in very effective ways. So my end of of Ocean Legacy was Epic Academy, and that's what's on my shirt. So I have a little shirt that says "The ocean is calling." It says it needs help, and then on the back side I talk about Epic Academy, and I've got a little QR code that you'll see that come up in another slide. So Epic Academy is the education. It's a free platform, and it was designed because this is the waste coming out of one single community after a cleanup. What we were experiencing is people were having tremendous grief. They were very deeply impacted, recognizing how much plastic waste was in the ocean, was on their shorelines, that animals were becoming entangled with. And so we realized that we needed to create the pillar E for education and research. And so this is just a couple of slides that I pull out of the content of the curriculum. It's 10 lessons, and it helps you to really understand what the problem is and how to solve it. So some of you may wonder, well, how does plastic get in the ocean? So I pulled this slide. Essentially, things get directly in there. Places don't have waste management systems. They use rivers, especially in developing nations where they don't have the infrastructure that's developed. So litter, and it's just plastic ends up mismanaged. We have laundry. You'd be shocked at how much microplastics is coming out of your clothing. Just from driving, you'll see in the next slide the amount of tires, the microplastics that are shed by our tires as we travel. and personal care products, the things from fishing and aquaculture, and of course there are other sectors and industries. And the content will take you through all of a deep dive into all of this. But if you look at that slide here where we see 4 toonies for comparison and scale, that is the amount of tire dust that's coming off your car in a single 16-kilometer trip. We can't see that, but if you've ever touched, you get that black sort of like film, well, that's what's happening. That's coming out of paint as well. It's coming everything. Like right now, I have a 100% cotton shirt on. There's still some vinyl on this, so there's plastic in that. And if you're wearing a fleece shirt, you're inhaling microplastics. So there are quite a number of sources for this, and this content is going to help you to understand what those sources are. Whoops, let's go back. Oops. Wrong button. There we go. Okay, we're jumping ahead. Mouse can, there we go. I'm taking 2 slides back. So your lessons 1 to 5 are foundational knowledge about the problem. They're going to help you understand the basics of plastic, the distinctions between nanoplastics, microplastics, and macroplastics, how plastic actually travels to the ocean, why there is so much, and some of the impacts on this. It's designed for high school age and above, so it's designed for adults as opposed to kids because it's written at that level. And lessons 6 to 10 are going to move you into action. So we're going to help you understand the problem in the first half of the content. And then we're going to teach you about how to deal with media and government, how you can advocate, how you can help advance the development of policy and infrastructure that will serve our community or communities in places that don't have it. And one of the lessons is actually devoted to building an ocean plastics recycling system in your community, helping to involve media and how you handle them. What are the things that you need to do to be effective? What do you want to stay away from? There's an amazing amount of practical content because just like leaving those skills behind in the community after cleanup, we want to be able to make sure that people have the knowledge that they need to be effective and keep taking action. So if it's something that's of interest to you, I've put a QR code on the screen that you can shoot, which would take you directly to there. It's also under epicacademy.ca. And there will be a few questions, just your name and your email address, a little bit of information to help our funders. It's fully funded through TELUS. So TELUS pays the money to keep this platform running. And there's no cost to actually take the 10 lessons. You do receive a certificate. And one of the things that's so beautiful about it is that it actually auto-saves if you're, just a few minutes in line somewhere or you get interrupted, it will automatically save wherever you're left off. If your computer closes by accident, it's available on all devices. Apparently that slide isn't coming up. So, but tablet, mobile phone, laptop, computer, anything, it's written for all formats. And to give you a little flavor of why it's relevant, one day I was on Kanatara a couple of summers ago, so it was right down by the lifeguard house on Second Beach, and I took this picture and thought, wow, the beaches here are so clean. I know it's a blue flag beach, but this is amazing. So then I went to set my chair down and my foot moved the sand. And what I found was I started here with that little bottle cap in the first photo, and each time my foot moved on the sand, more waste kept coming to the surface. From the first picture, there are about 10 pictures there, and all around the edges are what I found, and the center shot is the collection, and that's exactly 2 minutes of me picking up waste on the beach, on sand where I could see nothing. So if you're not aware, every September, Lake Huron, the Coastal Center, does a beach cleanup at Kanatara, where you can just sign up and they will provide the buckets and all of the pickers and gloves, everything that you need, and you can come and be part of this cleanup to help keep our shorelines clean. Your key statistic is at the top. If you see waste on land, the most simple thing you can do is pick it up and put it where it belongs. If it's clean and appropriate to be recycled, please do so. Otherwise, make sure it hits a waste bin. Essentially, 80% of what lives in the ocean has made its way onto the ground and either hit a street sewer, just in the gutter, or a small stream, which eventually leads to a river that leads to a lake that eventually leads to the ocean. Anything within 50 kilometers of a shoreline, whatever kind of shoreline it is, ultimately will end up in the ocean. Our Great Lakes have about a 200-year cycle, so if you put it in at the top of Superior, it's going to take about 200 years before it finally works its way through the Great Lakes, but eventually it will reach the Atlantic Ocean. So that's something that we all need to be aware of. And so this content is absolutely free. We're, of course, welcoming of donations. And when you go to the website, there is a spot where you can make donations. There are preset amounts where you can decide whatever you want. There is no obligation, but anything that you would donate would be obviously a huge contribution for Ocean Legacy to help keep their mission funded and working. And this is who I am, and I feel so grateful that you have an interest in this material. I hope that some of you will sign up. You are more than welcome to get in touch if you have any questions. I actually helped to rewrite that content before I left last year. It had been written, and just in that few years, I think it was about 2020, they launched during the beginning of COVID when everybody was at home. And ultimately, the platform has been continuing to grow and continuing to grow. And it's so exciting to see people. There's over 40 countries that have signed up from across the world. The platform is available in English, French, and Spanish. There are materials there. If you know educators at the high school or above level, there is an entire section devoted just for educators with classroom lesson plans and testing for students, everything that's needed. So what we really want to do is to just spread the educational message and help you access this information so that we can create a global community of ocean stewards. We hope that you will be one. Thank you so much for inviting me today, and I hope that you'll join and become an ocean steward too.